This conference will now.
For those of you that's just joined, thank you for joining. We'll start in about a minute. Kendall, I just want to do a quick screen check to make sure you can see my screen.
I can.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I'm showing it's the top of the hour. So welcome to our 7th episode of True Talks with Project Managers. Hi, did somebody have a question? All right. This is our 7th episode. I'm really excited to have this talk show. Today's topic is going to be on military outreach, and it's really been a topic that we have really needed to present for a long time. So I'm really glad that we're able to do that today or tonight. And so for tonight's show, we have Kendall Lott as our host. And we have as our guests, our special guests, are Tim Dahlhaus, who is the CEO of PM Prolearn, and also Josh Atkinson, who's their Chief Business Development Officer, and our very own Scott Johnson, who is the Director of Operations for Education and Certification of Military Outreach for PMI of Southern Maryland. All right, so just a couple of reminders is please turn off your cameras. And if you have any questions, we have a chat. So feel free to put your questions, or they could be just comments, and we'll pass those on to our host, Kendall Lott. And actually, I'll be monitoring the chat, so feel free to put those comments in at any time. All right, and so after the show, this you will receive, if you are a PMP or other certification, you can receive a PVU. So we'll send out a PVU card as to the directions on what to enter into the PMI system. And we'll be getting those out to you within the next day or two. We also will be sending out a survey, so if you could fill that out. It's usually a very quick survey, taking only a few minutes, but it really helps us to know what what we can do better and what's worked, and so we could just make this show much better. We'll also, as I mentioned, we're recording this, so this will be accessible online, and I'll be posting this to our YouTube channel tonight or tomorrow, and so I'll be sending that link out as well. So let's see, my screen just went, there we go. All right, so I'd like to, it's really an honor to present our host, Kendall Lott. Kendall is, he wears many hats. As you can see, he is the president and CEO of Empowered Strategies, otherwise known as MPS. He is also the co-founder, and he's also the chair and CEO of Project Management for Change, which is very dear to my heart. And he's also the founder and host of PM Point of View, which is a podcast. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our host, Kendall Lott.
Hey there, Harry. Good evening. I'm so used to saying hi, Marina, but so I'll say hi, Marina, and see if you respond.
You're welcome.
Thanks for pulling me up and for the ad. Hey, Harry, I've got a couple things for our audience here tonight. I think some of our folks are maybe not chapter members. They may be coming from the military to check out what PM is all about. So I want to, just in case there's some military folks who are trying to check into what you're up to in your chapter, if you could tell them how they get to join, or remember to tell them at the end of the session tonight how people can become members or find out more information from Southern Maryland chapter. I think it'd be great, because it may not just be us chickens here, our PMP chickens here tonight in the coop. So that's something I think you got, and you can tell them about it or post something. Now, I also wanted to follow up on something you said on that PM for Change, and again, thank you, because you're actually the major engine for it now. I'm just a smiley face over it in part. But for those of you that were here in our last episode, we had PM for Change on here talking about PMDOS, PM Day of Service, and I wanted to let everyone know that there are positions being looked for in the PMO to help run it this year. I think, Harry, some colleagues for you. So if you get a chance, Harry, if you can pop in the website for that, anybody who heard that last month or 2 months ago and was interested in it, I've since found out from the boss over there, Beth May, that there are positions open. So be ready for that if you need to. I shout out for that for those that were interested from the last session we had. On the podcast, by the way, another thing is we're going to drop one this week. Where has project management gone? Because there's a whole discussion from the digital management world. Mike Hannon and I co-hosted that, so you guys might want to watch for that. And UMD, we have an episode in November from the UMD symposium that happened in May, where we've pulled some of the speakers out and done another brief with them. So free PDUs, y'all, that's a good place to go there. So join the chapter, join PMDOS, listen to podcasts, and tonight, let's listen to some folks who actually have walked the walk in the sense of both service and also in the project management space. And I think that's going to be our exciting space. Remember to put your questions, if you have some, in the chat, and let us know if anything you think about. I think at the end there's a survey so that we can make sure that we get the kinds of guests and topics that you're interested in, and decide, hey, we're going to come out of this COVID stuff eventually, right? So there's going to be in-person meetings. We got to decide if we're going to keep doing webcasts when that happens, unless you're all just so thrilled with them and not ready to go and meet ever. So tonight we have the three guests, former and active personnel, military personnel, and one of them actually works here at the chapter, as you just heard. So we're getting our hooks in for the chapter tonight. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with Tim and Josh. You want to bring up your cameras? Come to the stage, gentlemen. Tim Dalhouse and John Atkinson, you both heard. They come to us from PM Prolearn. Hey, there's Tim. I see Tim. Where's Josh? Oh, there he is. They come to us from
squares. You got to find me.
Oh, yeah. I'm throwing darts till I hit one. I turn you two over and it's a match with PM Prolearn. So the key here for us folks is, yeah, they do represent a company because they're interested in training, and they're interested in training PMs, and particularly focused often in the military space. But they both have a pedigree out of the service, out of Marine Corps, with medals and certifications to prove it. And so welcome, guys, and thanks for showing up to tell us what it's all about here tonight. Seriously, welcome.
Great to be here. Yeah, thank you.
So Tim and I go back to when I was in a different position, and he was beginning to help PMI-WDC look at some of how it might do some of its chapter/military connection, as I remember, going back to probably 2015, 2014, somewhere in there, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we were across the river then. Now you're even farther away.
A little bit, yeah. It's still daylight where I'm at here on the Big Island of Hawaii, Kona, Hawaii.
Nice work you get.
That's
Project
right.
management in the military has done good things for that. So talk to me for a second here, Tim. Kick us off. What have you done yourself? What has been your focus with respect to the military since you and I last talked about 7 years ago or 6 years ago on this topic? How have you been seeing that evolve, that PM military connection? We'll get into how it's connected later a little bit, but how are you seeing that evolve? Have you seen evolution?
Yeah, tremendous. Right, Kendall. So I've been retired for 12 years. So I retired in 2009. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I never heard the term project management before I got out. I didn't even hear that term till I was working for a company called CGI Federal up around Dumfries, Virginia. I got hired as a subject matter expert and some Marine Corps knowledge that they needed on the government contract. And I got there and I heard about this project management thing and about PMP and becoming a project manager. And I thought, oh, okay, let me check this out. But nowadays, folks are hearing about project management in the military, right? The military started, using this language and looking at the concepts and the practices that are being, used out in the private industry. And people are coming out of the military now with a knowledge of what project management's about. And a lot of them are even already getting certifications in project management, rightfully so, recognizing what they've done in the military as projects before they ever get out. So it's like a lot more awareness than when I retired. So tremendous. And I think that that's really where PM Prolearn came from as a business. I started mentoring people when I got out of the Marines, and I got into this project management thing purely by accident or God's blessing. Some of my military friends were asking me, Tim, how in the world did you do that? We know you're a retired avionics chief, you were a recruiter, you worked at headquarters Marine Corps, and now you're a project manager at the Food and Drug Administration in the Center for Veterinary Medicine, Office of New Animal Drug Evaluation. How did you do that, right? Who did you tell a good lie to get that job? And so, I started mentoring people and says, no, man, it's project management. And you did tons of it while you're in the military, and I did too, but I didn't realize it. And so I started just helping, my friends figure out how to get into this project management thing. And it evolved into a business because there was so much need there, and really, felt good to be able to help people with what I had found out, on my own after I transitioned. So big difference between 2009 and now, and I'm really excited to be part of that, having mentored people and even started a company that really has a real focus on helping military people prepare to transition to this forward project management.
I think you hit the big LinkedIn Venn diagram that we see. Do what you're passionate about and what you're good at, and then see if you can get paid doing it. And it sounds like that's how you landed.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, every day's a holiday when you're doing what you love, right?
Well, now that Joshua has water in his mouth there, I was going to ask him a question over there. Hey, Josh, we talked a little bit before we got on here, but what's the punchline for you from the position of specifically as a trainer and change manager? Because that's what you've highlighted in your own bio. How have you worked with that and trained PMs with military background? How have you seen that as different, interesting? What's something you can highlight there from that point of view?
So a continuation of your first question to Tim about the evolution of change in terms of project management in the military has been that awareness message, right? From a change management perspective, step one is, hey, I'm an alcoholic, right? You got to admit there's a problem. So the business case, right? The awareness message that says something's different, right? So we've built, and I put a lot of articles right now in the chat on, hey, guess what? Everything you do in the military is project-based work. PMP is, MDMP and military planning on steroids. This is a leadership qualification that you can get while you're a leader in uniform now that eventually opens doors later, right? And I think that's been the biggest change for us, right? So, from a strategy, messaging, education perspective, right, to bring those together, my job from a business strategy side of the house has been building that education for leaders at units, in the Marine Corps, in the Air Force, now in the Army, saying, look, these aren't civilian certifications. These are military leadership certifications that benefit you and grow you today that, of course, then down the road will open doors later, right? And one of the most recent messages I've built is essentially that you are the weapon in transition in a hunting analogy, and you don't want to be upgrading your weapon when you're supposed to be firing, right? So waiting until transition to build your own organic capability is too late. Right? You want to improve on your marketability, improve on your credibility, improve on your leadership capability when you have time to use it still in uniform. And then when you come to the job transition, it's simply a different target. because you already have the pedigree, you already have the certification, you've already been using the certification. So, you know, from a change perspective, and the benefit and the joy I have is that I get to help empower people by changing the way they think, right? I get to innovate the mind and get people to think differently, that this benefits you today, right? This isn't a civilian transition thing. This is a leadership PME for those in uniform now, and funding and resources exist to help you get there.
I can certainly validate that from where I was sitting completely outside of the service, but through the PMI lens, is we were trying to capture people back when I was kind of engaging with some of it with other chapters as they were coming out of service, coming out of their, the TEP, as they were yeah, and our TEP program, they were trying to come through, and we were trying to catch them then, and this is a whole different kind of look and lens on it. I want to get into some of the structural stuff around project management, though, where we can see some of that alignment in case we have some folks here who are not currently in project management. We talked before a little bit that there's a lot of stuff that's covered through the military aspects of planning that looks like and yet is different than project management. So I wanted to kick some of that around, looking at risk, planning, team building, flexibility, communications. How have you seen, let's do a little compare and contrast. Tim, talk to me a little bit about how you've seen this issue of being able to start a team and get a team going. How is that different in the two roles you've seen, purely project management and from a military perspective?
Well, there's a lot of parallels between what you do in the military and what you do in private industry as a project manager. I mean, in the military, everything's usually referred to as missions, right? We need to accomplish a mission. And as a project manager, you need to accomplish a project, but their projects and missions are really the same thing. They're temporary endeavors to produce a unique outcome, right? So in the military, you're trying to achieve that goal that your commander's given you. You got resources you got to use. You've usually got a timeline, and you got to get the job accomplished, which is what you do in private industry and in the government as a project manager. But the team, the projects are done by teams, right? They're not done just by project managers. You have to have a team of people doing all this work. And so in the military, same thing. You can't do all that, stuff yourself to accomplish a mission. So your skills of leveraging people in the military and getting the right skill sets assigned to the right jobs and managing the accomplishment of that work is the exact same thing you do in private industry. The big difference is in the military, they can't leave if they don't like your project or your mission, and they don't like the way you're managing it or whatever. In private industry, you get out and you realize, oh, wait a minute, if I yell at people, they might leave. If I tell them just to suck it up, they might not like that, and they might quit and go somewhere else. So there's this whole new dynamic to deal with when you're out of the military, that people, those resources, their teams can leave, and quite often they do, right? In project, you lose people all the time they get pulled to work on another project in the same company because somebody hiring you thinks they're needed over here more importantly, or they get a job offer from somebody else that's offering them $10,000 more a year, and they bail for that, or they just get fed up with something that's going on in their work life and they decide to leave. So you don't deal with that in the military, but you do in the private industry. So that's a mental shift, right? That you have to really get into when you get out of the military is that team leadership's the same, but it's more important, I think, in the civilian world, because you have to keep them motivated, engaged. You can't just demand things and say, hey, they're going to do it because they have to, right?
One of the best parts is that you guys, I appreciate that point of view, but one of the best parts I see is that you guys already know all about all the acronyms. In fact, coming out of the military, you've got acronyms way more than even project managers. It's possible project managers. There are people who have more acronyms than we do. And so you've got that part down. Let's talk about business value and end results. Josh, talk to me about how you've seen that in terms of how the military plans for that versus what you've observed in the private sector or in government services with project management, civilian project management.
Yeah, so I think there is a direct parallel in the military versus civilian PMP world, but it stops short, right? So we get on the MDMP cycle, right? There's 5 steps from receipt, commander's intent, co-development, co-comparison decision, co-wargaming, right? Write the order, issue the order. just like there's initiate, plan, execute, monitor, control, and close. But when you zoom in on the two processes, you realize that the military stops after planning, right? And to Tim's point on building a team and stakeholder management, right? I think the lens in the military is very narrow, and typically a stakeholder, when I was in the military, someone that outranked you and could screw your project over, right? I mean, so like it was someone who had the power to disrupt your mission, and you monitored those people with power and authority. But when you look at the civilian aspect of project management, I got to go from the initial plan and issuing the order through the execution of that. And now I got to look at financial risk and profit and loss. My stakeholders are everybody from the local populace to the junior member on my team, to my boss, to the customer. I mean, and the breadth of who is a stakeholder largely expands, especially in a civilian environment. And when you apply that in the military context, it changes how you communicate, to your previous thought on Tim of, look, my communication plan isn't what frequency and what chat medium I'm using. It's what message am I sending to what person and how frequently, so that they are empowered to do what's necessary to make my project successful, right? So it changes the lens that you want to use in terms of how I communicate, who do I communicate with, how do I manage and respect my team and the local populace? And then when you look at risk to that degree on profitability and quality and customer value and branding, right, to a coin environment in the military, like if I mess up this environment or I mess up this mission set, I may completely disrupt the customer, which is the local populace. And that's not taught in the military planning cycle, right? Yeah. I issue the order, we go do what we're told, we kick in doors, we kill things, we come back and we're good. But to take in the people aspect of it, right, to Tim's point on the team leadership side, to the stakeholder side, to the customer side, right, to expand that environment of, you know, closing out your project with a quality product, right, that met the customer's intent and requirements, so they want to call you back for repeat work, right, is a big deal on the civilian side. And you never deal with a customer in the military side, right? I'm going to get moved on, I'm going to get promoted. My biggest concern is whether or not I die, someone gets hurt, or I get a bad eval, right? In a civilian environment, the voice of the customer and your brand quality determine whether or not your business is successful, right? As a project manager, and having that responsibility is different, right? So I think, you know, the framework is there. Military is great on the leadership aspect, but understanding the business and the process environment, to go to the talent triangle, right? You have people, business, and process, right? There's a huge gap in terms of the business aspect and the process aspect in the military that PMP, ACP, Lean Six Sigma, all these things kind of fill in that gap while you're still in uniform.
Yeah, and framing that, part of that I think is interesting in the PM speak. All the PMs can raise your hand if you remember stakeholder salience model with your 7 different parts of the Venn diagram. We got lots of them in the PM world, or actually in the business world generally, right? And they are salient in various ways. So that sounds like a shift that probably you as trainers are probably addressing somewhat with people who have the military background. And I think that's interesting. How do we address concepts of quality? I think of quality being not military. I think I'm assuming a lot of quality has to do with the ability to eliminate risk in military, right? Is reduction of you know, inordinate harm, personal harm, and things, making sure things are smooth. How do you see quality when you're teaching quality to military folks through the PM lens as we look to get into the civilian sector? Do you see a variation in there and how that's described, thought of?
Who are you asking? Either
one. I'll throw it up and let you two volley for it.
Yeah, you can start, Josh.
Okay. So quality is interesting, right? And this is probably more leaning on my Lean Six background in terms of a quality perspective, right? One defect per million opportunities, right? I mean, so, but the difference is really when you focus on, I think, theory of constraints or voice of the customer and other concepts in that world about, did my mission meet the need of my stakeholder, right? Did my success of this project meet the need of my team? And again, depending on how you look at the stakeholder in this environment, right? You know, in the leadership lens, especially in the Marine Corps, where, you know, officers eat last and you want to empower your team, my stakeholder ultimately was my team successful, and did I resource them and equip them so that at the end of the mission, they felt valued and respected, right? Did I care for that? Did the quality of my leadership and how I executed meet the need of my customer, you know, my team? There's the command perspective, right? Did we successfully accomplish the mission and bring everybody home safely? Did we meet the performance wickets that we needed in terms of that aspect of quality? And depending on your MOS, in maintenance, which is definitely Tim's wheelhouse and not mine, right, is the work that I performed to the standard required so that the mission can continue. So I think depending on the seat you sit in your MOS, me as a logistician, right, quality was that I have all the stuff at the right place at the right time and did the stuff flow through the way it's supposed to, right? That's quality in a metric. But, I think the elements of stakeholder and the people side in the military is probably the best quality metric to go after that sometimes gets missed because we're so concerned about the performance metric that we miss the team leadership aspect of it. And then your quality actually erodes. And it's the same in business, right? If my team is not respected and empowered and I micromanage and I hound, right, to meet performance deadlines, eventually my team walks away and the quality suffers, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a unique perspective, and leaders in the military teach the same thing. If you want a quality output, take care of your team, right? So Tim, I'm curious on your side of the house on quality.
Yeah, so there's two big buckets of quality, right? You got quality of products and quality of processes, and they impact each other. If you have high quality processes, the outcome should be high quality products. But you can deliver high quality products and not have super high quality processes. There's just a lot of waste in what you do to achieve the product. In the military, in my experience, the focus has been mostly on the quality of the product. What's that end state look like, right? And not so much, and I'm not saying there's no focus on it, but there's not as much focus on process quality as there is in private industry. And I think the big reason is because you never worry about money in the military at most levels, right? If you're an operator down there and you're just tasked with accomplishing something, you don't have a budget. You're not worried about how much money did we just spend on, man hours or, equipment, stuff like that. It's all just, hey, do we have enough people? Do we have enough equipment? But the money piece is not there. When you jump into the private industry, money becomes a huge issue, right? And profit margins. And so focusing on process quality in the civilian world has a heightened focus, because it's not just about producing a quality outcome, but it's also about saving money all along, delivering more value and increasing that profit margin. And that's a big kind of shift in thinking when you come into private industry out of the military, is that money's a big deal and quality of processes directly linked to that spending and what your profit margin is going to be, and companies live or die on that. So you got to have a big focus on process quality.
There's a point, Tim, I want to address, and this comes up a lot with the application for military, is that labor is the most expensive thing you ever deal with in the civilian world, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the understanding of that process piece, because of the man hours wasted and the cost of man hours, greatly impacts your profitability on a project. Right. But in the military, it's like, I'll deal with whoever I've got. We work weekends, we work nights. There is no overhead. There's no overtime. It's just, you're here for the duration, and I can task you and use you and make you sit around and do nothing as much as I want. But that doesn't work in the civilian world. To Greg's point, on a forward deployed carrier, you're resource constrained, right? You're fixed, but that still means I can take somebody and say, just sit there for 24 hours and do nothing. And that doesn't cost me any money. But as a construction PM, right, which I did after the military, if I'm paying a unionized superintendent to sit there and do nothing, that is thousands of dollars a day of waste, right? And that's going to eat into my margin. So I think the understanding of, labor costs money is a big disconnect in the military, right? Yeah, it does lead to quality process.
Well, thanks for that, guys. I'm gonna have you guys sit down with that, and we'll bring you back with some other questions that I have going forward. But I think you really highlighted a couple of things that I found interesting, which is, one, we're already seeing this being used in the military. It's not wait for later. We can kind of start working at it now, but highlighting how both the customer is seen, how stakeholders are seen, how quality is seen. Some alerts for people that might be in the military getting ready to transition, things to watch out for. There is definitely a different focus, like you said, around cost, at least as we experience it as project managers and project team members. So with that, I'll invite you two to stand down for a second while I bring up Scott Johnson. This is Southern Maryland's own. Scott, you out there? Did you make it back from your boys' sport?
I'm here, Kendall.
All right, welcome, and welcome to your own chapter webcast. So Scott's active duty Air Force, and he's with Southern Maryland's. He's their what is it, Director of Education Military Outreach.
Yep.
And I was asking you, he's only been with the chapter, what, 2 years? And he spent all 2 years volunteering already. So there you go, folks. There's your model. Join the chapter, start volunteering immediately. So thanks for working on it. You're active duty Air Force. I was going to tell you to, when I was prepping, I was like, okay, ground us in your military and PM career. And then I thought, probably it's not a good idea to tell someone in the Air Force that they should be grounded in anything, probably in any way. So I'll go more artsy on you.
Okay.
Set the scene. How are you experiencing project management while in active duty? How is that working for you, and why you're interested in it?
So project management in the military, especially active duty, going through it varies. It varies so much, meaning you touch a bunch of different projects, and stuff that you don't believe are projects are actually projects. I remember going through my PM Prolearn training with Tim, and he highlighted a few things, because we're going through the application process, going through trying to figure out, all right, what did I do to run a project? How did I run a project? Do I even have this experience? I started questioning myself and what we were doing. And Tim's like, pump the brakes, Scott, pump the brakes. We got this. So we sat down, we started looking at it, and it's as simple as running retirement ceremonies, which everyone retires eventually in the military or separates. So going aways, promotions, those are all projects. They're short endeavors that you see from start to finish. Yeah, you're definitely accelerating through the process into the different phases of a project, running those small short endeavors. But it's just like that. I'm an aircraft mechanic, so exactly Tim's field house as well too. And our depot rotations, our mod, going through different variations of upgrading the aircraft, those are all projects. And as an aircraft mechanic who's in charge of that aircraft and seeing it from start to finish, those are all projects that we're running through. Yep, there's a whole lot of civilian contractors that are mixed in, but using your project management skills and after you're applying your certification, those all start to connect the dots for you, and using your that.
I want to follow with that then.
Okay.
As you were doing your work, as you're doing your service, and you started putting on this PM hat, of the different things you've learned from the PMBOK, from the PMI world, from the PM, from Agile, whatever you're studying, whatever approach you've been taking in understanding the generic or general ideas of project management, what has been the most interesting for you that you're like, aha, so that's what I'm doing, or aha, I need to do that as well? We talked about some variation with our other guests there just a minute with Tim and Josh. What did you see that's the most interesting that was not inherent in how you were getting your military training?
I would honestly say the biggest connect the dot piece for me, something I didn't truly realize, like quality management and change management, right? You see all those things going through the project. Everybody sees that. Those are clear indicators for me. But stakeholder engagement and managing your stakeholders, and in civilian world, it's a little different, right? You gotta make sure that you keep everyone happy, you're keeping inside the scope, you're doing those things. I would almost argue that you're doing the same thing with your commander or your senior enlisted leader. It's their project. They can squash it and terminate it almost immediately on you. But keeping stakeholder engagement with them and understanding who to handle and how to handle in certain ways, that could make executing a project a lot easier and a lot more beneficial for you.
So how are you projecting your own career as you're still active duty? What are you picking up that's making you aim? What are you aiming at with your PM as you're, because you're in the mix of it right now. And
yeah.
We're talking about, how military aligns with project management, and it's the same type of skills. You're there. So how do you see this taking it forward for yourself? What's your arc, do you think?
So I think if I'm understanding the question right, I'm 14 years in, so 6 more years to go to the finish line. So applying that PM skills to where I'm at now, I would say that's very much understanding the experience and getting where I need to be, right? Because going through the training is one thing, running various projects and then applying your certification is one thing, but then running it and saying, hey, when I get out, I have 9 years of PMP project management experience. I ran X, Y, and Z projects and ready to go. I'm not entry level. I'm your real deal guy. As Josh hit on when he was talking a little bit, waiting until transitions is too late, in my opinion. If you're at that point though, and you're transitioning and you're looking at, hey, I'm gonna go get my PMP, I'm gonna encourage you to go do it. But also, if you're the 9, 10 year, 11 year, 12 year, 13 year member, active duty, guard, reserve, whatever your career field choice is, go get it, go after it, and then apply it.
Yeah. When you were listening to Tim and Josh talk, what was the biggest thing that they got your head nodding? You're like, yep. Oh, I see it.
There's quite a few. I would definitely say the transition piece, like we kind of touched on, and that I really wanted to hit. I kind of did already, but stakeholder engagement. We started talking about that, and your unit leadership being able to kind of cap off your project on you. I really wanted to touch on those two things. Those kind of hit for me.
Yeah, so you feel that. Are you having a chance to mentor or assist anyone while you're in service now? Are you being able to express this in your job to people and talk it up?
Yeah, so amongst the many hats that I wear, I also run the professional development for my wing, and yeah, so talking to them about project management's one thing. I'm also involved with Tim and Josh. I never let go. Once I build a connection, I don't let it go. So build a connection with them with getting the training, and then I also work with them on a PM Pro community volunteering and helping active duty members achieve their PMP certification. So we had an individual I got hooked up with by Josh. She was a Marine, and she needed some help getting some mentorship on some PMP. So her and I spent probably 5 or 6 weeks going through different study sessions and going through different processes and getting her to understand everything using the PM Prolearn learning management system, and getting them where they needed to be, getting her where she needed to be, and eventually getting a pass in there, and then helping others through their application process through PM Pro community. And then when I get a chance to speak for project management at my wing, definitely take advantage of and encourage folks to go after and do so.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. I want to bring Tim and Josh back up here and get all three of you in here. It sounds like you guys have worked together some on a lot of this. Tim and Josh, you still out there? Still hanging out?
Oh, I ain't going anywhere. Come
okay, good. Yeah, I was told that you could talk about this for hours. In fact, I think you told me that. So,
Josh could talk about anything for hours.
So, he's a consultant. I didn't realize that. Okay. So there we were talking about how there's so much connection, so much commonality, so much learning, and the need to get some of that project management training even while you're still in service, making the transition easier, opening opportunities. Given all of this, one thing that I had been struck by when I was dealing with chapter stuff a few years ago, and I wonder where it is now, why aren't we chock-a-block full of military in the project management space? Is there a barrier? What's happening? Why don't we have more? What are you guys seeing from the different perspectives that you have?
Yes, I think that number one, we are seeing a lot more than when I got out in 2009. It's definitely growing, right? But I think that we just did a poll, and it's still running actually on LinkedIn. Throw a poll out there on LinkedIn, asking just people, hey, what do you see from employers? What are they focusing on for project management roles? Getting just general public feedback. And I put on there previous experience, college degree, professional certifications, and specific industry expertise. And the one thing that has 0 votes so far is college degree, right? So employers aren't looking at that, but they are looking at previous experience, professional certifications, and specific industry experience. So those 3 areas are some key things that employers are looking for. Now, military can get a lot of previous experience managing projects. Scott's doing it right now, and he recognizes that so much stuff he's doing is project management. You can get the certifications, right? And Scott's an example of that. Got it when he's, even halfway through his career. But the specific industry knowledge is the hard thing to come by if employers are looking for that, right? If you're applying for a job and it says, hey, you got to have 5 years in the healthcare industry, and I've been fixing airplanes for the last 10 years, I'm obviously not going to be a front runner for that. So that specific industry experience, I think, is a challenge for military members to get and move into those project manager roles. So we when we train people, you know, at PM Prolearn all the time, we're telling them, hey, the PMP is going to unlock doors of opportunity for you, but it's not a get out of jail free card where employers are going to hire you with, you know, nothing else going for you. So that specific industry experience is a tough thing to come by. I personally think that a lot of employers put way too much emphasis on that than they do on good PM skills. Like I'm an example, I got a job at the Food and Drug Administration, had no experience in pharmaceuticals or animal medicine. And there I was working in the, you know, Center for Veterinary Medicine as a PM for 3 years and, you know, very successful there. But that is a tough hurdle. And so a lot of people getting out of the military run into that, and maybe they get disheartened and they're like, yeah, I'm going to go a different direction. Or and I recommend, hey man, you know, get your foot in the door somewhere, because that civilian employer doesn't really, they see you got a PMP, but they don't understand that you're going to be able to come in and be so adaptable because you are, and be such a quick learner that you can walk right in there and hit the ground running in almost any industry. So get your foot in the door. Maybe you don't get that, you know, that project manager job of the multi-million-dollar project right out the door, but you need to, you know, maybe get a lower level, more of a starter position just to get your foot in there and then grow. It depends on you know, your particular environment and your particular job skills. But when I got hired by CGI Federal, I didn't get hired for project manager. I got hired for some specific Marine Corps knowledge I had that employer needed. And once I got in there, they said, hey, wait a minute, you really are showing us that you have some skills that you can manage projects. And I said, well, of course, I accomplish missions all the time in the Marines, and I led teams, and I'll steer environments with limited resources, and I made stuff happen. And so then they, you know, moved me into project manager roles. I got the PMP and so forth. And you may just need to knock down some doors with showing people what you can do, you know, and get in. So.
Well, let me bounce that over to Josh. Anything to add about why we don't see more, or what potential barriers are sitting out there? And I do want to note, we've managed to get ourselves compared to see alcoholics, prisoners, and now crayon eaters. So I don't know what to do with this whole project management space. But Josh, why? Any thoughts to add on what you're perceiving as what might be representing barriers or slowing down the transition?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with two inconsistencies. One is that people are uncertified and want to sell themselves as a senior project manager, a senior program manager in a company with zero experience, right? You're shooting for the fences and you have no idea what that means, right? And I gave a class today called the Empowered Transition, where I essentially told a commanding officer, you're not a CEO, right? It's a difference between employing policy versus writing policy, right? Those are different skill sets, and profit and loss versus troop welfare are different mentalities. So there's a disconnect, right? I think in what the role of project manager is. And I think the biggest gap, though, which I teach a concept called hunting versus fishing, is if you only let your resume speak for you, you've missed the ability to sell yourself, right? So PM, you know, applying to a job, put in a resume, and you don't have that pedigree, it's hard. It's an easy disconnect or an easy, you know, avoid for a hiring manager to say, I don't want you because you don't have the skills and pedigree that I want. But if you turn hiring into a human intelligence hunting analogy, right, and I start having a conversation with somebody and I make the hiring process personal, right, then I can sell my business acumen to an individual on why I'm value added to your team, even though I don't have the industry experience, because I have the soft skills, I have the people skills, I have the planning skills, I have the, you know, flexibility and the tenacity and the aggressiveness and the maturity to be a value add to your team. Whether or not I speak IT is irrelevant. Yet from a hiring manager perspective, they're so used to going after the most capable IT person as a project manager that they miss the leadership aspect. So if all you're doing is making your resume speak for you, you're never going to get hired, because commanding officer, battalion S4, and acronyms mean nothing, right? But, you know, leader, change agent, and when I talk with you and you go, holy crap, man, you're mature, you're articulate, you're driven, you understand our business, I don't care that you're not here, right? And I think that's a disconnect in veterans in general with trying to get a job, right? So I teach people how to hunt. You know, use LinkedIn, network, find out what's valuable to the person, or, you know, write a resume tailored to the individual's needs and their business requirements, and then have a conversation with the person before you apply to the job, right? Because on paper, we suck.
I think you said something really interesting, though, for all of us. Don't let you know, it's a missed opportunity if you're letting your resume speak for yourself. I mean, that's why you got to get the resume through these AI systems so we can get into real job interviews. I think that's true for everyone. Scott, do you have anything to add there? What you're perceiving as potential barriers as you see people growing up in their PM skills and PM ability to execute?
So one barrier I could say is translating the military lingo and how they run projects versus civilian, because they're two different aspects, and how we manage and do those types of projects are two different. The one thing I would say is get out and volunteer. I just signed to volunteer with Taproot and Together Well, and do some project management stuff for them, just to keep fueling that project management experience. So when I walk out the door and I try to pitch to that company that I'm not just an entry-level project manager, I've been around the block a little bit. I have those points of, hey, I volunteered at this program, I ran these projects, I did these things, not just military, but civilian as well.
Excellent. I've got another set of questions, but I had a request come in. Greg, did you want to make a comment? We've got an audience member that wants to grab a microphone for a second. Greg, you still
I'll make
there?
it very short. I'm a guy who got transitioned out of the military. I was deployed my whole career, and transferable skills.
Yeah.
In the military, we had program managers, project managers, program managers, and portfolio managers, and they all had different things. But we have transferable skills, and we go on the other side. How we communicate that is a big deal, and the jargon is a big deal. I've been coaching folks a long time. I coach a whole bunch of people and help them get their PMPs and everything else. I finally got put up and shut up. So Friday afternoon, I signed up. I had to drive up to take the test the first on Saturday morning. With my study was during when I was driving up to DC. But I grew up in construction. So there's a lot of things from project management to transitions. A lot of PMI came, the first few versions came from construction. Agile is what the construction has done since basically the pyramids.
Yeah.
It's new for a lot of the tech industry, but with waterfall and everything else, but that's not new for a lot of those folks. So the point is, all the skill sets you guys have, you've dealt with all those type of things. You have transferable skills. It's learning the jargon, learning the translation to sell the points you need to have. And
I want to follow up
Scott
with
is
that.
doing a great job. These guys are giving great information. How do we want to sell that? How do you want to translate that? How do you make sure that your transferable skills match? And you have a network that goes across the globe. Now the one thing I'll say I'll shut up. I told you to be short. We also have military, but we also have spouses. Guess what? Event planning is a project.
Yep.
A lot of spouses have done event planning, coming back from cruise, doing this, doing that, everything else. They have those skill sets. Those are transferable skills. It's understanding that, translating that. Look at those resources. How do we translate those? And I made some smart comments and things, because on deployed things, if you have a big infrastructure, yeah, you can have people sitting still. If you're shorthanded, nobody sits still.
Yep.
And every port call, like I was in Japan, no bachelor got more than 1 day leave in 2 years, because we wanted to get people with their families. So we do those trade-offs. There's a value decision that we made, but how do we make sure we balance that? We rented a bus, and we took them to the amusement park for a weekend in Tokyo. We do those things to try to trade those values.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your input, Greg.
I will shut up because I'm done.
Let me take this. That was a really good point about transferable skills, and you guys have hit on something. I still have a question for you here, and we're going to have about 3 minutes apiece to be able to answer. But first, I want to highlight that I think this issue of transferable skills is really interesting, and the idea also of events as projects, also a really good idea. And I think if you've ever seen wedding planning, you'll understand what a project is in that context. I did a podcast with the Wedding Planning Association to hear that, because it can be a thing, right? So I think that's interesting. One thing I would highlight that I had run across before that might be something for people to consider is when I was working, I can't remember which chapter it was now, but they actually worked on interview skills. to speaking to what you guys are saying, which is to get the military folks to be able to describe their world. And we found sometimes a disconnect where employers were looking to say, you know, sure, I'd love to hear from you. And there's like this complete, a very fundamental different way of seeing how an interview works. That may have to do with length of service or rank or something, I'm not sure, but that was one thing that we had to watch out for. It's almost like there are two different languages are happening, and so couldn't get to the heart of it. So that might be something to be thinking about. But I want to flip the question around now for you guys as we get ready to wrap up here in about 9 minutes. Here we go. From your perspective, from the civilian side, Tim, you're now running a commercial practice as a CEO. I run a commercial practice as a CEO. What do CEOs, what do project managers, what do account managers, what do hiring managers need to know about the military project managers that are coming and getting interviewed? So not what do military folks need, but what do we need to know? What do we need to look for? What do we need to know? And what do we need to be prepared to address that might be different, or areas that we're going to need to watch for and help mature? So all three of those pieces here. What do I need to know? What do I need to be looking for? And what do I need to be careful of, or think about where I may need to add extra training as I bring in someone with a great pedigree from the military? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first on that one if you want. I'll probably suck up the 9 minutes, so I apologize. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll cut you off in 3. Go.
So I think what do you need to know? I think step one, the company needs to know what they actually need in their position, right? And this goes to transition from military, starting with the requirements first. What is your requirement? Because asking for freaking purple unicorns out there from the certification and credibility side doesn't meet the need. And someone said earlier, hiring an IT PM with IT experience isn't necessary because I need leadership experience. So step one, companies need to know that, you know, you got to know what you're looking for, right? And certifications and engineering experience or other things aren't necessary. 2, from the military side, you need to know how to network, right? If you're going into an interview not doing your resources, like taking somebody on a blind date, right? You need to know that the company meets your needs and your values and that you want to be there. So by networking and getting on the inside, I can find out what's valuable to the company, what the starting salary is going to be, what the hiring manager finds valuable, and what business need they're trying to meet by hiring me. So if I don't know what business need they have, I cannot sell myself and my company, me as an individual, to meet their business need and their requirements, right? So because they don't know what they want, I got to do my homework to network in and find out what their requirement is. And then it's a different conversation from a position of power to say that, look, I know why I'm value added. I know what I bring to the table. I know what you need and know how I fill that gap, right? So I think those 2 pieces alone, if I can get companies to understand what the requirement is and get veterans to network on the inside, it's huge. And the last piece I'd say is that hiring is a single event, but employee engagement is a lifelong process. So companies to learn that if you want to hire a veteran, you better have a growth development plan to get them from in the door to successful.
There we go.
And if you don't, you're going to fail because the military has a growth plan, right? I probably had more experience, more supervisory responsibility, and done a whole lot more with less budget than you've ever had. And you're going to tell me I'm not responsible enough to manage 3 people on a project, right?
I'm going to take that to Tim now, because you just gave me a big warning here about the development plan. You've got to, I think the military is prepared to see what is my path. And if we can't speak to that, we're just leaving it hollow. Tim, what would you add? What do I have to know as an employer if people come from the military? What do I need to watch for?
So I do interviews now, right? We hire people in our company, and I coach other people on, interviewing. And I think that one thing that has really bubbled to the top in my thinking as a CEO and someone that does hiring is I am looking for someone that fits into my company culture and can uphold my company's core values and can help us achieve our company vision. So there's a lot of times where someone has a really great looking resume, they perfectly fit on paper what the job is, and they're technically competent. But then when we talk to them, we realize there's a little disconnect in how this person thinks and how our organization approaches problems, how we think about stakeholders, how we feel about servanthood, and how we feel about collaboration and things like that. So it's super, super important. I would so much rather hire someone that I felt was going to fit culturally with my organization and solve my company challenges and mentor them and coach them into some technical skill sets that we need, than hire someone that had all the technical pedigree and was going to come in and be, hard to work with and a barrier with things. A lot of times when a hiring manager sits there and interviews the person, that hiring manager already knows several stakeholders that this potential PM is going to have to work with, right? And he already knows some of their challenges and how difficult they are and how they think. And that hiring manager is evaluating this employee or this candidate as to how will they be able to interact with these stakeholders that are already on the project, already within the company. Will they be able to influence them in the right direction? Or will this person's personality clash with our client that we're trying to do the project for, right?
So that's going to be something I think we have to watch out for from a civilian perspective, because I suspect, although individuals are still individuals, that there is such a strong military culture, and it's been so much time reinforcing it, that it's simply not the same for a lot of the commercial environment from a pure cultural perspective. And so that might be, I just took a second alert here, which is watching for that culture fit, because we don't operate in the same way coming from our background. And the corporate culture does actually matter. So like for mine is a very different one than what I think I've seen a lot in the military, although understanding there's a breadth of variation still within that. So thank you for those alerts. Scott, I'm gonna take it a little bit different for you right here at the end.
Yeah.
Well, because you're not on the outside yet.
Thank you. Yes.
Because you have a special seat at the table here tonight as we get into our last minute here and get ready to transition out of the webcast. So what does the chapter have to offer? And where, because you're sitting across kind of chairing this military outreach. Southern Maryland is sitting smack dab in the military footprint here.
Yep.
How do you see that from, give us a chapter pitch, advertise the chapter for a second. What does PMI Southern Maryland have, or how can it help, or what do you need? What do you see there as some tools to help with that?
So for the chapter, we service 3 bases. We have Pax River, we have Indian Head, and we have Joint Base Andrews that we look out for and take care of from a project management perspective. Now, what can the chapter offer you? We have various positions amongst our board that we're looking to fill. We're looking for help. We're looking for experience. Members at large to help us run projects. Greg is one of our members at large. Beth Tanner, she's another one of our folks that are members at large. Who are continually running projects for us and helping us get where we need to go. Because even as a project management chapter, we still have our own projects internally that we need to manage and take care of and do for. So what other things we offer is we have a preferred training partner like PM Prolearn, and we have other companies out there who we work with to help certification process too. So if you're looking to get your certification done and you're looking for a little extra help in mentorship and development, the chapter offers that for you as well too. And then you got myself, who's going to start making the big campaign push. So expect some emails. Southern Maryland Military Outreach is revamped and on its way, coming in fast.
It's a project. Well, you just ended with the word mentoring, and that's where Tim picked up at the beginning and top of our hour with this idea that he started with mentoring. That was a passion. And I think that's where all of you as members of that chapter have something to offer people, just from the fact that you're living it, seeing it, and seeing both lenses and bringing it together. So I appreciate all of your service, and also your service in the project management space. We need to make it more valuable as a profession to more people and more available to more people. So I do definitely appreciate that. So with that, I'm going to ask one last question here. Scott, how do they need to get hold of you or anyone else? Is it just hit the website? What's the follow-up plan here for anyone that wants to pass on some information to others?
Yeah, so we definitely have our PMISOMD.org website. That's our chapter's website. We have our military outreach tab in there. We have our join and how to join the process, how to join the chapter and become a member is all in there on the website. We also have a Facebook social media account and also LinkedIn. So please hit us up on all 3 avenues, and we'll get in contact with you and get you acquainted with the chapter.
Tim and Josh, I was going to thank you. Tim and Josh, I was going to follow up with you, but I saw you actually fired those things off in the chat right at the top of the hour there. And you are one of the preferred partners and training partners for SOMD, so that people can get to you there. Anything else they need to know to get hold of you in our last minute?
I mean, I'll put my email address in there, a LinkedIn page as well. Tim will drop his in, I think, afterwards. But reach out. We want to help, right? This isn't about business. This isn't about making money. It's about helping people succeed and achieve their goals. So if you're in transition and you want to help, give me a call, reach out. Any of us will do it. Scott's a huge one as well. But organizational performance, right? One of the branches we're going into is helping companies understand how to hire veterans and how to build high-performing teams, right? So if you're curious on that end, on how to translate military, I've done some classes with county leadership in various states as well on what it means to hire and retain veterans. So, reach out and let us see how we can help you, because it's not an event, it's a journey. Just like PMP is not a class, it's a journey. And Scott knows that, so let us help you on the journey.
Now, that's a nice shout out to corporations on learning how to attract and retain in that space. Tim, anything to add there?
No, well, I did put my information in there at the very beginning as well. If you just scroll up, my contact information is in there. Josh is really the contact person for all of our business development and figuring out how we can help organizations. And I'm just a guy that signs the checks. So he's
Excellent. Well, sign one up for me then. Scott, Tim, Josh, thank you for your time tonight, and again for your service. Harry, you want to take us out here, man?
I sure do. I just want to thank Kendall Lott for being our host. I really appreciate your getting the flow going, and it was a really great show. I really enjoyed it. And also I wanted to thank our guests, Tim Dahlhaus and Josh Atkinson from PM Prolearn. So thank you, gentlemen, for being on the show, and our own Scott Johnson. So I just want to thank everyone for attending. Let me just show you real quick that we have some upcoming events real fast. So a quick advertisement for Agile Essentials online class is coming up October 25th with Ellen Zucker. And we also have coming up on the 28th chapter membership meeting. You can register online on our website. And we have our next True Talks tentatively scheduled for next month on the 17th, and the topic will be on talent management. So stay tuned, and thank you again, everyone, for attending. My name is Harry Zolkauer, and I'm the Vice President and COO of PMI of Southern Maryland chapter. So have a great night, and hope to see you on another show. Take care.
Thank you for having us on, Kendall and Harry. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.